Welcome to My Healing is Your Healing, a podcast for the woman who is ready to stop performing and reclaim her voice. I'm your host, Celeste, and around here, we don't do surface level. We go deep. Each week, we'll explore concepts like self-discovery, radical honesty, and the kind of healing that rewrites your story from the inside out. This is a space for truth-telling, for remembering who you are, and for coming home to yourself, louder, braver, and more radiant than ever. So come as you are, and let's do this together. Let's begin. Welcome back to My Healing is Your Healing. I am your host, Celeste, and today we're talking about pivots. The kind you didn't plan for. The kind that shake your confidence, disrupt your identity, and force you to ask questions you never thought you'd have to answer. This episode is for anyone who's ever been laid off, redirected, rejected, or quietly wondering, is this really the life I'm meant to be living? My guest today is Tanesha Moody. Tanesha has lived reinvention in real time, from calling cues on Broadway's first national tour of Mean Girls to leading global events for brands like Disney, Under Armour, and Salesforce. After experiencing multiple layoffs, she realized her work wasn't just about creating experiences. It was about helping people navigate uncertainty and reclaim their confidence and lead their lives from alignment rather than fear. Today, Tanesha is a speaker and a certified coach who helps people turn rejection into revelation and clarify purpose when life doesn't necessarily go as planned. In this conversation, we'll talk about what happens when your old identity no longer fits, how confidence is built after disruption, and why purpose isn't found at the top of a mountaintop, but clarified in the moments that shake us. So let's dig in.
Tanesha, thank you so much for being here on My Healing is Your Healing. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to dig into a little bit of your story first, if you wouldn't mind telling our listeners a little bit about your background, and then we'll get started.
A little bit about me. So I am a creative. I'm someone that really appreciates kind of figuring out how things work and helping to make a difference. And it's such a privilege to be able to do that where I am right now with my company, my organization, Tanesha Moody, LLC, or Full Out Coaching. But I didn't start out with trying to help people figure out their lives. I actually started out, at least professionally, in theater. I was a stage manager and did theater professionally, even working on a Broadway first national tour at some point. And it was such a privilege to just create something from scratch, to be a part of something bigger than myself. And those skills of being a stage manager transitioned so seamlessly into corporate events. I've had a chance to work and lead global teams at cool companies like Marriott, Under Armour, Salesforce, and really have been able to help people create experiences from scratch. But I recognize that my favorite part about all of those roles was helping people, helping them get a little bit clearer about what they wanted to do, unpacking and moving out of the way obstacles. And with that realization and with my life changing through navigating rejection, through being laid off, through feeling like I wasn't chosen and having that lack of clarity about what my purpose was and who I was supposed to be, that all has come together to where I am right now. And it's such a privilege to utilize my learnings to help people practically move forward in their lives.
That is so exciting. I love that you were able to do that not only for yourself, but for other people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so you've lived through multiple pivots, like you said, and that you didn't choose. Looking back, what was the moment that you realized those disruptions weren't detours, but invitations?
Say, when I think back on my journey, one of the most impactful moments was when I was actually laid off from Salesforce. And how that layoff happened is I was actually away from home. I was on site for an event. It was a director there. Exactly. And as far as I could be, I was on the other side of the country in California, and I'm here in the DMV, Maryland area. So I was like, all right, I'm away from home, away from my cat. a day ago, I was meeting with executives talking about the plans that we were going to have. And now I find myself with an email saying that, oh, don't come back tomorrow. So being hit with that realization, and of course it felt personal, especially like, why am I here? Like I could have been at home in my slippers. Like I didn't need to experience this type of layoff announcement actually on site for an event. And it felt like a major rejection. And of course, when something major hits is when you think that that is your purpose, when you think that, oh, I'm actually in a spot that feels like myself, that I get to use my skills, that I can have a chance to make an impact and shine and help people. When all of that gets stripped away, you're left thinking about, all right, what do I do now? And of course, I took that opportunity to go and figure out my life. And that looked like, all right, I'm going to go and do some Spanish in Costa Rica because I figured, why not learn and grow? Get closer with God, which actually maybe should have been the first thing to do before the Spanish. But I also had my own coach too at that time. So having that support and just the circumstances of doing the inner work and the external work of unpacking, like, who am I really? Why am I created? Why am I here on this earth? That moment, that rejection, that impact of that layoff was really the catalyst to get me here today. So, of course, I didn't see it like that in the moment. But if I hadn't had that experience, if I hadn't been displaced from a job, who knows if I would have still been able to make the impact that I'm able to make now. I don't think I would have had that clarity, that time, that space to really unpack who I am at my core, what my values are, what my purpose is, and do that work. I don't think without that experience and navigating all the rejections that came after that, applying for jobs and relationships and things like that, I know that I wouldn't be where I am right now.
That makes so much sense. And it's also fascinating because it made me think of something that I heard in a book, which is completely unrelated to like coaching and jobs, but it has to do with like rejection. So it comes from Matthew Hussey's new book, Love Life. And it's talking about how like you think that this person is your person, right? Like, and then when they decide that they don't want to be with you and they break up with you, they are not your person anymore, right? Like you can't ever have this fantasy that they're going to be your life because they've already decided that they don't want you. And so if Salesforce would have said, hey, no, thank you, or would not have said, no, thank you, do you think you'd still be working from them?
It's an interesting question, especially when you read things in the news right now and some of uh, the statements that have been said from leadership that doesn't really align with my personal values. I'm not so sure. And I don't think I would be there um, for those reasonings, or maybe it would have shifted into a different role internally. But I can't imagine me right now still being in that role um, when I've seen what the other side is right now, like recognize like the freedom that I can have, the impact that I can have, the relationships and connections that I get to make on a daily basis. If I had gotten a taste of what I have right now, I don't know if I would have still been there at this point.
Oh yeah, the grass is not necessarily greener. You just like, it is just overwhelmingly beautiful, right? Like you are just, as soon as you get a taste of what's on the other side of that, there's no going back. I get it.
Yes.
So another kind of question when you go into this, like talking about getting laid off, is so many people tie their identity to their role or their title, whether that's being a mom or, you know, your job title. What happens internally when that identity is taken away, and how do you begin actually rebuilding that and making it so that people stop tying themselves to just that persona?
Yeah. I encounter this a lot, especially with some of the clients I have a chance to coach and some of the writing that I've done too, because I see us not only attaching our roles and our titles to our identity, but we also attach it to our purpose too. We seem to think that my job is my purpose. Like that is the thing that I am placed here to do. And over the course of these years of being able to kind of extract that, I've started to recognize that there's a lot of contributing factors to why we believe that. Of course, there's society, our upbringing, people that are close to us. There's lots of validation that comes from having these titles and these roles. So, of course, we start to seek that out. And as that kind of becomes more of how we see ourselves, we start to apply this mask, and that mask is who we think that we are. That's our identity, it's our purpose, all wrapped into this one pillar that could be stripped away, that most likely is going to be stripped away at some point. And it actually really relates very, very closely to some of the work that I did for myself. Because I wanted to figure out, like, what did I want my life to look like? I wanted to live full out, but what does that look like practically? And I built this framework called the CLEAR method that includes clarify your purpose and live your values, embody your identity, align with courage, which is navigating those fear, that failure, that rejection, and then ripple your impact and service for others. And the two pillars that I kept coming back to a lot were that my purpose as well as my identity, and doing the work of actively extracting myself from those roles and the titles and the things that I thought was who I was, but that wasn't really what it was at the core. And what I started to realize is that, especially when it relates to purpose, I needed to believe that I even had a purpose in the first place, that I was created for something. I needed to understand, like, okay, I have gifts, I have talents, I have skills and things that I can use, as well as unpacking that everything that I've been through previously had a purpose. There was a sign for that. There was a reason for that, and it's in service for other people. And as I started to think about that as my purpose, it was clear to me that, okay, if that's my purpose, then the jobs that I had, they weren't my purpose, but they were assignments. They were things necessary that I needed to accomplish to start fulfilling my purpose and service for other people. And I think the same sort of format applies to our identity too.
I think that's really unique. I like that a lot. I had a guest say her favorite quote was, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards." And so I feel like that applies to you, to me, even thinking about like how I got here. So it's very cute. It's very cool to see that everything in your past, you're still tying to who you are today.
Exactly.
So you talk about transformation or transforming rejection into revelation. What does that look like in real life, especially when rejection initially feels so personal or destabilizing?
I love this question. And I think it goes back to your previous question too. Um, it's easier, found, to navigate rejection when you actually know who you are. When you know who you are at your core, your identity, the value, the worth, all of those beautiful things, your being, your essence. When you are clear on that, it's really easy. It's a little bit easier. Let me not say it's really easy, because sometimes rejection is a little bit challenging to navigate rejection. After being laid off, and of course, throughout the course of my life, just in general, coming from a theatrical background or performing arts background, rejection is something that you encounter on a daily basis. And I feel like as an entrepreneur, I experience it even more because I'm always putting offers on the line. It's very easy to feel that when you're receiving those rejections, that it's a reflection of who I am personally. And the reframe that I've started sharing is that I wasn't rejected, my offer was. So separating yourself, your identity, from whatever offer you put on the line has been something that has transformed how I see rejection, and hopefully how other people see it too, as I write about it and talk about it as well. When we're able to see the offer separate from ourselves, it makes it a little bit easier for us to feel like when that rejection hits, it's not a reflection of me personally. It's the job application, the offer to actually give my skills and my resources to a company. It's the offer of to be a companion with someone. Like, that's being rejected, not you personally. Looking at those things as separate entities from ourselves makes it a little bit more accessible for us to navigate rejection and learn from it and grow from it. We start to see rejection as a gift, as a confirmation that we tried, that we put an offer on the line, that we did something scary, that we aligned with courage and navigated something that could hold us back from living full out. In addition, we start to extract the data, the feedback from rejection too. We start to seek those no's out so that we can use that so eventually we get to a yes. So it's definitely been an ongoing process for myself. And even sometimes I get caught up like, oh, I don't feel like being rejected today. I don't feel like putting an offer on the line. However, navigating around that and recognizing that if I do this for myself, like that's a win. If I put an offer on the line, that is a win, regardless if they say yes or no. And those aren't even the only options. Sometimes it might be a not right now. There's a whole spectrum of things that could come out of you putting the offer on the line. And I think that's such a beautiful thing about rejection. And honestly, I could talk about rejection all day. It's come to kind of appreciate a little bit more deeply than I had previously.
What a wonderful way to look at all of that. I mean, even if you think about it as practice, you're still growing that strength inside of you because, I mean, no matter what it is that you're asking of someone, um, like that's every time that you go out there and you try and get a no, you're getting stronger or better at doing it the next time. Yeah.
Exactly. There's so many learnings that come from that. If we're just willing to put our offer out there and give people a chance to give some feedback instead of us self-rejecting ourselves before we even give a chance to bring something to life.
I love that. So going back to your clear methodology, you said that it starts with clarity. Why do you feel like clarity is often the missing piece after a setback? And how can people begin finding it when they feel lost?
So I feel like clarity is such an important piece to start on because it connects to every single thing that we do. I know for myself, when it came for clarifying my purpose, I have been able to do things that I probably would not have been able to do without the clarity. There was a point in my life where I was going through the motions. I was successful on paper, but I didn't feel like it. I felt like I was trying to measure up to some impossible criteria and expectations that I didn't even set on myself. However, since it looked good, it felt like that was it. Like my vision was very hazy at this point. It was filtered down into something that didn't reflect who I was, who what my identity was, or my values. So as I started to get a little bit more clear on my purpose, on why I existed, it became easier to tie the things that I was meant to do to those pieces. I know I mention a lot sometimes to my friends and my family, like, I'm not an early bird. Like, I would rather stay up late. I love just sleeping in and all of those things. But now that I have clarity on my purpose, like, I'm out of the bed because I know that today I'm going to serve somebody. Today I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to share something with someone that they might need. And that's the benefit of having clarity. And when it relates to actual setbacks, we don't see setbacks as something that's detrimental to our success, that it's throwing us off course. We don't see rejection as redirection because if we are in alignment and clear on our purpose, we see that we're on the right path. We've been on the right path. That no just means like that's there. There's some feedback. We just go around it, but we're still on the right path. So that's the benefit of clarity. We have something that we can cling on to when those seemingly negative things happen in our lives. When we're off course, when we're told no, we can still go back to who we are, what our purpose is, and the impact that we're meant to make in service of others.
It's so interesting how you put that. It made me really start thinking about like my childhood and even up till recently, the things that I have been doing in my life that weren't necessarily mine. They were just kind of handed to me from the world. which included doing triathlons and getting a doctorate in clarinet performance and just being like, doing the things I thought I was supposed to do because my parents and the world told me. And so a couple of years ago, I got the chance to figure out who Celeste is, right? And pick and choose. And it was incredible to like watch all of this stuff kind of disintegrate away. But those things that were the most important just stuck there. Um, you were saying something about like clarity. And if you would have asked me a few years ago or like you would have given me rejection, I would have taken that fully to heart and probably ditched the thing that I was doing because you told me I was bad at it or something like that. But today, I'm like, I don't care if I get a Boston qualifier in a marathon. Like, I'm still trucking, I'm still going, even if you tell me I suck.
Yes. Oh, I love hearing that. That's so awesome that you've been able to do that type of growth. And I loved how you connected it to childhood too. I really feel like our younger selves had so much right. So much right. Like my younger self she was a writer, she was creating dresses, she was dancing, just full of joy and laughter and wanting to bring people together and serve people. And now I'm like just trying to get back to that version and bring that into adulthood. So it sounds so similar to you so thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. I feel like we're all not alone in this. It's just society, I don't want to say manipulates us, but we're told from so many different sources growing up, whether it's TV, our family, our friends, our teachers, right? Like you should be this way. And you lose that joy. Yeah.
100%.
Okay. So you've worked in both creative and in corporate spaces. What patterns do you see across the industries when people are navigating some kind of change or uncertainty?
Some of the patterns I really recognize, and I know I've said this actually in meetings working in both, is that at the end of the day, people are people. You know, if you're selling to a company, business to business, if you're creating events for another business, et cetera, for prospects, at the end of the day, people are people. When you're in the audience, like you're connecting with them as a person. And same for in the corporate realm as well. And I feel like that's sometimes the thing that gets most missed. And I wonder if that's like the theme for what we're talking about too, is that it gets missed because maybe we haven't done that inner work of figuring out who we are. So when it comes to actually connecting with another person to make a sale or to big business or whatever, or make an emotional connection, it's really challenging to do that because we haven't done that work ourselves. And that's something that I've noticed throughout. And as I continue to write about this and think about it, there's a lot hinging on how deep of the work have we done for figuring out purpose, values, as well as our identity. What kind of work have we really done? Because it stems out from there. It's a reflection. If you have low self-esteem, for example, potentially you haven't figured out who you are. So it's easier to kind of see that external validation or hear something external and apply it to ourselves because we don't know who we are. If you're taking rejection and fear of failure a little bit personally, could it potentially be because you haven't done that inner work of recognizing like who you are at your core, your being, what your essence actually is? And I think we're all connected to each other. So if we're not doing the work for ourselves, how deep can we go with our clients, with the people that we're trying to connect with? So that's the trend that I've noticed across both.
You said that something so interesting. It's almost like how deeply can you connect with somebody else? And it's only as much as either of you have gotten curious about yourself to dig deep enough. And I hear people a lot of the time say, I'm so sick of small talk. And I'm like, okay, well, have you maybe re-examined yourself? If small talk is what you're having with each one of these people, maybe they're not the problem. Interesting.
Very true. I just had this conversation too with my mom because I was telling her, like, it's just some relationships that I feel like we just don't go very deeply. Like, I feel like I have to walk on eggshells and be like, well, Like I have a choice. There's always something that you can do in these. You can choose to go deeper. You can find new friends. You can make certain that you are showing up fully. So maybe other people are able to do that too. A little bit of vulnerability just goes such a long
Yeah.
way.
I think the thing that is scary for me is that being like coming from a place where I was not very healed at all and being able to take the past few years and learn more about myself is the more that you become awake, the more when you see other people, like you really want to help them become awake because this life, this world is so beautiful, right? You're like, how much joy do I actually have right now? And how much joy was I missing out on? Like being able to wake up and just have this life that I've dreamed of. And I feel so sad for those people that just are numb to the world and haven't gotten to experience this. But I also recognize that it's very painful to get here.
Yes. Yes. And if they don't want to get there, there's only so much that we can do. And I think what you're alluding to as well is you being that reflection of how good it's here, how good it is here, could be what they need to at least have a little desire, a little inkling about like, how do I get there too? I think about that a lot when it comes to my faith and being a Christian because it's like, if I can radiate this joy, they might be like, all right, what's different about that person? Let me go ahead and see what it's all about. But it's those little moments of us being authentic, joy filled, of walking in our purpose, of doing the work ourselves that might entice somebody else to do similar work eventually.
You're going to make me think on that one now. How can I bring this into the world a little bit differently?
Yay. Oh, that's so exciting. I'm excited to hear how it comes out for you.
I will keep you posted.
Please.
Okay. So many listeners probably feel the pressure to bounce back quickly, right? Like you hit a hard spot and you're like, well, I have to be back and functioning in this world because it asks us so much. Do you believe it's about bouncing back or standing firm in who you are and really just growing back slowly, piece by piece? And what would you say to those people to try and help them recognize that they don't have to go from 0 to 60?
I did something recently, and it was actually about grief and about navigating grief and supporting others as they're going through grief. And it was saying something along the lines of like, once somebody loses someone close to them, like that person is not the same person anymore. Like they are completely different now. Like they spent years of their life knowing this person, living with this person, and now they have to become a new version of themselves without that person, without that support, without whatever that person was providing for them, and vice versa. And I wonder if instead of us thinking about bouncing back, maybe it's more we're thinking about like, who am I becoming? Like, where am I growing to? Of course, I'm a very strong believer, and I write about this in terms of like purpose and identity. I don't feel like they actually change in quotation marks. Like, I feel like you have the same purpose throughout your life. You're going to have different assignments. There's going to be different ways that you can fulfill that purpose. You'll pick up some new gifts along the way. There'll be some new stories and challenges to help serve people. But we have a purpose that is rooted on a foundation. I feel very similarly about identity too, that we have like a core being, a core essence of who we are when no one's around, when there's no titles, etc. Like that is not changing. I do feel values fluctuate. And I feel like when it comes about us becoming these people after navigating setbacks, after navigating grief and some of these really strong emotions and instances in life that are going to change us, feel like it's more about becoming instead of bouncing back. I loved who I was previously. That person who I was previously got us through things. They built the foundation to get me here. And I know that they are rooting for me actively to become the version of ourselves in the future too. So I feel like it's not really bouncing back. I'm not certain if it's really about like a slow growth specifically, But I do feel like it's something that is, um, I just had like the Matrix come to mind. Like we are gonna be, I don't know, created into some new being again and again and again. And that's a beautiful piece about life, is that we have these core things that we can cling on to, our purpose and our identity. But a lot of those other things, we can fill in the gap and figure out what that looks like for us and who we need to be to achieve whatever's next.
I just had this vision while you were talking about this of like a plant or a tree, right? Where it's growing and then something gets in its way, whether it's a tree, another tree, or like a fence post or something else, or it's blocking light. And you're like, okay, well, now I have to pivot and shift and find a way to survive in a different direction. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. Yes. I feel like that's a great image of how we're becoming. And it's so fabulous to think of something like in nature, because our growth, our becoming impacts other people and vice versa. Like as we grow and shift together, like we're just building a beautiful forest, ideally.
I used to hike a lot. And like really long hikes. So in order to entertain myself, I would look at all the different trees, and like some of them are massive, right? And some of them have these really weird, and I'm not going to call them defects because they're still living entities, right? But like you would notice like, oh, that's a really weird branch. Like, I wonder what happened there. And like, if you think about that for human beings too, right? We're like, wow, what they must have been through in their life to have either been shaped this way, or to, something must have affected them so much that they have this crutch or whatever it is to do with their person. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. So thank you for sharing this.
I hope you go on a hike soon and see that.
I love a good hike.
Okay. So how do values, because you were talking about values a little bit, help anchor people during times when external stability disappears?
Yeah. So my definition of values, I like to think of them kind of as the guardrails for how we're going to show up. Like what's really important to us in terms of anything. And I don't like to kind of subscribe to like, the values that we see on like a company wall, etc. Like honesty is great. And then next thing you know, like when there's an opportunity to be honest, to lean on that value, just it never shows up. It doesn't enter into the room. So I like to think of the values as things that we actually leverage and use to kind of filter through, how am I going to move forward? How do I want to do these things? Which ones do I want to honor to accomplish what I wish to accomplish? And I feel like values are something we can infuse along the way. Some of my values are joy and gratitude and freedom and making a difference. And sometimes when I'm doing something that maybe doesn't light me up inside, if I can tie it into a value, if I can infuse a little bit of joy into like, I don't know, cleaning the cat's litter box or something, like that might make that task a little bit more positive, a little bit more important, and something that I may not look forward to doing, but at least like I'm doing it and I can see the bigger picture and I'm honoring my values in the process. So that becomes a muscle for me to do a little bit further down the road. So having the clarity on your values really kind of makes it a little bit easier to determine if you want to do something or not and how you actually want to do it. So when things are in alignment with that clarity of your values, it makes living life hopefully full out so much easier. I know I actually read, oh, I cannot remember his name, but the book is called The Values Factor. And he has a whole bunch of activities to figure out your values and such. And it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. He asks a lot of questions, and you're meant to like write down like answers to like maybe 200 questions or something crazy. It's a lot. It's a lot to do. However, that was the first like example that I heard of values as something that I can actually live. And that was the first instance that I heard of values shifting, because, we're changing. We're becoming different versions of ourselves throughout our lives. And sometimes the value of like travel might not be super impactful, very important for me, or might not be something that I lean on to make a decision because like traveling isn't important for me at that time. So the idea that values can change and fluctuate and that we can add new ones and take them away is something that is really fabulous, but we still have to have that clarity so that we know when we're living in alignment with those values.
I love that. You said that so well, because I also believe in having core values um, to help you align your day, right? And especially when you have your full day of scheduled meetings, whatever it is, what is it that's coming up for you in each one of those, right? Or is it something that's draining you? Do you understand why? Can you remove it? Can you bring something in that has those core values? But I love what you said about tying them or infusing them. So mine's curiosity and determination are a couple of mine. And so especially if I'm finding myself in one of those situations where somebody is just talking surface level, I try to remind myself, okay, get curious. What kind of questions would you ask to like really bring them out of their shell or something? Yeah.
It's so practical too, to honor that value in that
Yeah.
moment.
So I want to talk about purpose a little bit. I know you talked a little bit about how your purpose came to light. How do you help other people find their purpose?
So the way that I help people find their purpose is a less drawn out version of how I practically found mine. So it's such a privilege to be able to take my struggles and pains and frustrations, get rid of them and give somebody something that they can hopefully walk away with and actually utilize. So I've actually created something. It's called the Ignis framework, Ignis Purpose Discovery Framework, and it practically allows people to find, name, and live their purpose. And the way that we go about this is 4 different steps. We talk about spark, so that's actually like, and Ignis is Latin for fire, so it kind of aligns with that. So spark is about like believing that you actually have a purpose, like because that's really where some people actually get caught up. They don't really believe that they exist for a reason. And what I try to tell my clients and the people that have read the book and have gone through the ebook journey is that like if you exist here, if you're here, that means you have a purpose. Like you are here for a reason. And then we go from there and actually kind of unpack our gifts. So that's the second part. And we figure out like what gifts do you actually have? What comes easily to you? Like how are you able to kind of make a difference in terms of your skills and your talents very quickly? So that's where that flame piece, the flame piece actually kind of builds into that space. And then we go through from there and we figure out, all right, you've already lived some life. So what pieces of your story, what challenges or things that you've gone through shaped you? Like kindling is all about those stories, the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that we have had to navigate that potentially can connect and serve somebody else in those moments. So kindling is all about finding those stories, extracting the data from it, figuring out the good that came from it, the things that can potentially serve other people, and recognizing that nothing was wasted. There was purpose infused along your life all along. So it's now just trying to figure out where those pieces are and understanding your story from a different perspective. And that's where kindling, the third piece, speaks in. And then next we get to flame, which is actually figuring out who you're meant to serve and how. So we take, and there's a whole category of like action verbs that you can pick and choose from that space. And we recognize that probably along this journey, there have been people that maybe have naturally gravitated to you, you've naturally gravitated towards. There might be themes from your kindling, from your gifts that just align with just groups of people. For myself, it turned up to be multi-passionate people. I'm a multi-passionate myself, as well as being able to serve and help people that have multiple passions and try to bring it all together. So those were the people that I feel that I'm called to actually serve and help align their purpose and their passions so that they can live full out. And other people, it might be someone different. So we go through these 4 steps of figuring out that, yes, I have a purpose, I have gifts, and I have stories and resources and things that I've gone through to help fulfill this purpose, as well as there are people that I'm meant to actually positively impact. And going through this Ignis framework has allowed people to be able to actually say what their purpose is instead of like a whole Hamlet soliloquy or something. Like they're actually able to say it into a nice, firm sentence that they believe that they can hopefully carry that purpose along for the rest of their lives. So that's finding it, that's naming it, and then finally living it is recognizing I have this big arch of purpose. What assignments or roles and titles tier up to helping me fulfill that purpose? So maybe you're a doctor, maybe you are a mom, maybe you're a daughter, and these assignments might not be for the rest of your life. I know like eventually like my parents are going to pass away. So that assignment of being a daughter, helping them to live full out is going to go away after I fulfill that assignment. But that purpose still stays the same. But those assignments along the way, like you might be in a role right now and like, oh, this doesn't even align with my purpose. But there might be someone there that you're meant to impact, that you have a connection with, that you can use your skills and your gifts for, that you can tell your story and help them navigate. And again, that's an assignment fulfilled that's tiered up into your purpose. And that's the Ignis framework all drawn out for that.
I love all of this, and I love listening to you talk about it because you're just like lit up about it. You got very, I'm not going to call it luck because it's not luck, but you definitely found your purpose, and it's really cool to listen to somebody speak about themselves like that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful to be able to live it and to serve people and to help people get that clarity because, life is short and walking around not knowing what we're here to do, feeling like, oh, I'm in a dead-end job or I'm in a job that I don't like to do. How can I be fulfilling my purpose here? Just a shift of perspective it's such a gift to be able to help people see it that way.
I agree. So, what would you like to leave our listeners with after hearing all of that? What is like the main takeaway?
The main takeaway, I love this. I would say the main takeaway is we are exactly where we're meant to be. Anyone listening, you are exactly where you're meant to be. Even when things feel like lots of rejection, feels like a lot of failure, a lot of fear, like a lot of lack of purpose, we are exactly where we're meant to be right in this moment. Because if we weren't meant to be here, we would be somewhere else. I guarantee y'all. So that is what I want to leave us with, because there's so much power in recognizing that because I'm here right now means I'm right where I'm meant to be.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. I feel like you were meant to be in this moment with us.
Guys, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
If this conversation resonated, I want you to remember this. Disruption is not a verdict on your worth. It's often a moment where alignment begins. Rejection doesn't mean that you failed, but it may be refining you. And clarity doesn't come from waiting for certainty. It comes from choosing to listen to yourself again and again and again. You can find Tanesha's work, resources, and coaching at TaneshaLMoody.com, and you'll find her on Instagram at TaneshaLMoody. All of the links are going to be in the show notes. And if you are craving space to explore identity and purpose and self-trust a little bit more deeply, the Radiant Women's Collective meets the second and the fourth Wednesday of every month. It's free, grounded, and it's a supportive place to process and pivot in real time. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and remember, you were never meant to dim your light. Thanks for tuning in and being here, for healing out loud, and for walking this path beside me. If this episode cracked something open or helped you remember a part of yourself, pass it on and share it with someone you love. For more support, free resources, or the next steps to your journey, head over to my website, myhealingisyourhealing.com. And if you loved today's conversation, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your words help this space grow and help more women find their way home to themselves. If I was your muse today, then my healing is your healing. Until next time.